Welcome back to All This Math. This is Professor Parker, and for today's lesson, we're going to be multiplying some more rational numbers. So you see behind me, you see negative 6.3 times 2.7. Those are rational numbers, even though they're decimals, they do terminate. This negative 6.3 terminates at 3. This 2.7 terminates at 7. So these are decimals that terminate at a certain number, so that makes them rational, okay? So typically in real life, you would just break out a calculator, plug in 6.3 and put your negative sign, or depending on how your calculator works in particular, you might have to hit the negative sign first and then type in 6.3. Hit your multiplication button, then type in 2.7 and get your product, right? That's what we normally would do. And also you need to know that your final answer or your product is going to be negative, because a negative times a positive is always equal to a negative. But since we got time and, I feel like doing it, I'm going to do it the old-fashioned way, using the standard algorithm for multiplication, because it's always good for people to brush up on those skills from back in the day, those manual skills, to show how to multiply decimals especially. All right, so when I multiply the decimals, though, I'm going to act like this 6.3 is positive. I'm going to act like it's positive until I get to the final answer, because I already know the final answer is going to be negative, because like I already said, anytime you multiply a negative by a positive, the product is always negative. So let's just rewrite it. Let's just do 6.3 right there. Put the 2.7 underneath of it. When you're multiplying decimals, the decimal points don't have to line up. This is kind of just a coincidence, right? So I got 6.3 and I got 2.7. Draw my line. Put the multiplication sign right there. And then what I do using the standard algorithm, I start at the far right. So I start at this 7 right here. And I'm going to multiply this 7 by each of these two digits. Then I'm going to multiply this 2 by each of these two digits. So I'm going to do 7 times 3. You got to know your multiplication facts. 7 times 3 is 21, right? So I'm going to put my 1 from the 21 right there. And then that 2, I'm going to carry it to the next column. I'm going to put it up here, right? Above the 6. Then I'm going to do 7 times 6. Got to know your multiplication facts. That's going to give me 42. The 7 times 6 is going to give me 42. Then I'm going to add 2 to the 42, which is going to be 44, right? So I just put 44, and I put I don't carry this 4 because there's nowhere to carry it to. There's no more digits, all right? So I'm finished with my first row because I multiplied 7 by everything up here. Now I'm on to the 2. Now I can multiply this 2 by both of these. But before I do that, when I go down to my second row, I need to indent one space. So what you might want to do is do this. Put a little placeholder right there just to remind you not to write a number underneath of this 1. So I do 2 times 3, which is 6. And I put my 6 right there. And another thing you might want to do too, I carried this 2 from when I was multiplying the 7 by everything. I'm done with that 2. So I don't get confused and try to add 2 again. I can cross that out because I already used it. That might be a good thing you might want to do. You might want to cross out the numbers that you carried that you already used, so you don't make a mistake and use them again. So I did 2 times 3 and I got 6. All right. Now I'm going to do 2 times 6, and that's going to give me 12. And I'm going to write the entire number 12 because there's nowhere to carry the 1 to from the 12. So I put 2 under the 4 and I put a 1 out here. I drew another horizontal line, and now it's time for me to do addition. So you notice how with the standard algorithm, we do multiplication first. That's how we get the numbers in this row, and then we're going to do addition. And we start from the far right. We do 1 plus nothing. This placeholder really represents a 0. So 1 plus nothing is 1. Then we do 4 plus 6, which is 10. We're not going to write 10, but we're going to put the 0 from the 10 right there and carry the 1 up here. Then we do 1 plus 4, which is 5. 5 plus 2, which is 7. And then we bring the 1 down because that's 1 plus 0, basically, because there's nothing up here. So that's 1. But now we got to do something with them decimal points. So the two original numbers were decimals, 6.3 and 2.7. So how that plays into or comes into play with our final answer is we ask ourselves, from our original numbers, how many digits were to the right of a decimal point out of both of our original numbers? This 0.3 and this 0.7. That's 2 digits. So if there are 2 digits to the right of decimal points altogether in your original numbers in the original problem, then that means there should be 2 digits to the right of the decimal point in your product. All right. So memorize that, right? So if you forgot how to multiply decimals, or you never knew how to multiply decimals, just remember when you get to the last step, if you're multiplying decimals, you got to count up how many digits are to the right of decimal points, not just in one number, but in all the numbers or both of the numbers. This 3 and this 7 are to the right of the decimal point. That's 2 numbers or 2 digits. 1, 2, 1, 2, 2 digits, 2 digits. So if it's 2 digits altogether to the right of the decimal point in the original numbers, it's got to be 2 digits to the right of the decimal point in the product. So that means this 0 and this 1, they're going to be to the right of the decimal point. So that means you put the decimal point right there. And your final answer is 17.1. And that makes sense. That sounds reasonable, because even if I was like, gonna like estimate this, I might have rounded it to I might have rounded the 6.3 down to 6, and I might have rounded the 2.7 up to 3, and 6 times 3 is 18. So 17.01 is relatively close to 18, But yeah, I just wanted to do a quick refresher just in case you might need it, of how to multiply decimals and also how to use the standard algorithm for multiplication. All right. Now, I showed you how to do it. Now your job is to go get some practice. So until the next video, go get some practice. Peace.